And a good evening, everybody. Welcome into Overtime. I'm Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, alongside Jim Baxter of scvarsity.com. And, of course, we got a great show lined up for you tonight. Maybe the best game to watch yet. We shall see. We got a lot to get into and break down for you. And, of course, last week's game to watch, Jim, was also a good one. Two really good teams in our Millings area that, of course, we both picked Fairfield Central to win the game over Keenan. But still, it was two good teams in the Millings. I know they climbed up on my top five, but your thoughts of the game last week?
I thought it was a great game. I mean, Fairfield Central coming into that game was favored, obviously. I mean, I kind of feel like Fairfield Central right now is in the driver's seat as the contender in the Upstate 2A for their division. Keenan is certainly an improved team. Quinn McCullum's done a great job with that program, and they're a lot better football team than they have been in the past. This is not the same Keenan team we've used to see in the last decade or so.
Right.
But this Fairfield team is tough. I mean, Fairfield is they're loaded. They're loaded at skill positions. They're loaded on the line. Their defense is strong, and they're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs.
Well, the Griffins improved to 8-1 on the year because they won the game 37-12. And, of course, this is a team that's championship-minded, no doubt about that. They lost the first game of the year to Brooklyn Casey, and they haven't looked back since. And, of course, somewhat of a rivalry game, but it was no game really at the end of the day for Fairfield Central. They got the job done.
Yeah, and the scary thing about this Fairfield Central team, this was a good Keenan team they beat. They beat them 37-12, like they weren't even there. This was not, a weak football team they were playing against. It's a very strong football team. So this was a good win for Fairfield Central. And Keenan's going to do well. Keenan will do well in the playoffs.
Now, you think Fairfield Central is going to roll through the playoffs?
I think the upper state 2A is very tough. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in there. You got Newberry in there that's going to be strong, who Fairfield's already played. But Fairfield right now is on a roll. They're playing better football than anyone else in 2A at this point, outside of Dillon, and Dillon's in the lower state. I think we could actually see Fairfield Central and Dillon meeting again in the state championship.
Let's look at some other games. I've been taking us through some other games here. Of course, a lot of other good games every week in the middle. Westwood, interesting, 35, Blythewood, nothing. The Red Hawks, 9-0 on the season, and yes, they do it in the running game. They do it defensively. This is a tough team, and they're tough at home, Jim.
Yeah, of course, Andrew Plant, running back for Westwood, 198 yards rushing in that game, and outstanding play. Rodney Summers has done a great job with that. And like you said, big game coming up this week. Now, let's not get excited about a 35-0 win over Blythewood. Blythewood's not playing very good football right now. I don't think Blythewood's a very good football team. They're dealing with a lot of stuff out there, including injuries, and that's tough to overcome.
It's 35-0, Jim. At the end of the day, it's a great win. If a team's not good, you know what you do to them? You beat them 35-0. So
that's right.
Congratulations to the Red Hawks of Westwood. Let's go to Dutch Fork, and we'll get to this one later on in the program. Dutch Fork 25, Spring Valley 12. Of course, they overcome a very slow start in this ball game. I thought Spring Valley had an opportunity to win this game. They ran into some problems there offensively, couldn't get some things done. But here's a game now that was pretty close for a long time into the fourth quarter.
It was. I mean, listen, Dutch Fork faced a very good defense against Spring Valley. Spring Valley is strong on the front. They get pressure on the quarterback, as you saw Fant get hit there in the opening clip. And they've got a strong secondary. I don't think their linebackers, outside of the Jordan Williams playing at linebacker, I don't think their linebackers are extremely strong. It's a group. They're young. But this is a good defense for Spring Valley, which is why they struggled, why Dutch Fork struggled with them. But it's going to be a different story this week. I think they're going to see another good defense, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later.
Well, that's why I think that this game we're going to break down later on is going to be a problem for that team over on the Irmo side of town. Just saying. What about the Swansea team? Now, that's been a team that you like, 24-18 over the Fighting Sharpies. What's going on with BC? I mean, they started on fire, and they lose their third game in a row, Jim. What is going on across the bridge?
I'm going to tell you what. I was standing there when Brooklyn Casey came out and busted through the banner at the beginning of the game. I was standing there with my son, who was down here because he was suffering an injury. And they came through that banner, Corey. I said, they're flat. You could see it. There was no enthusiasm. Swansea came out, forced a fumble on the opening kick, picked it up, and they scored on that ensuing play and went up 7-0 early. And never turned back. This game was 24-18 as a final score, but Brooklyn Casey didn't score their first points till the fourth quarter. Swansea ran away with this. And I'm going to tell you what, Chance Walker, that running back from Swansea, number 15, is an outstanding player. I was really impressed with what he did.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with BC, but boy, they beat a very good Fairfield Central team to start the year in that brand new stadium. Of course, we know they had a lot of momentum and fight and lost their third game in a row. Well, it's that time that we break down our game to watch of the week. It's going to be a good one. Dutch Fork at Westwood, and guess what? Overtime is going to take it on the road. We're going to be right at the practice field at the facility and break this down for you. That's how special it is. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Overtime rolls on just after this break. All right, welcome back to Overtime. And Overtime hits the road today. We're at Westwood High School as they get ready to take on Dutch Fork. It's the battle of the region. My number one in Westwood versus Jim number one in Dutch Fork. Something's got to break. Something's got to give. And Jim, when you look at this matchup, we circled this date, Halloween night. Who's going to show up?
I like Dutch Fork in this game. I mean, we talked about it earlier. I think this is a very good matchup. I think both teams are very good. Westwood's showed good defense all year, but they're going to face an offense tomorrow night that'll be the best offense they've seen all year.
It's all about Matt Colburn for Dutch Fork. He's back healthy from that high ankle sprain. Matter of fact, he bounced back a week or so ago with 5 touchdowns, and they know they got to stop this guy. I expect them to stack the box, because you got to stop the run. Yes, Fant can throw the ball. Yes, they have speed on the outside, but it's all about 31. If 31 is going, it's going to be a long night, and I expect Westwood to be physical up front with defense.
They'll be physical. I think that they've got to limit the damage that Matt Colburn does. They're not going to stop him. He's going to get his yards. I think the key to this game is for Westwood to be able to run the football, limit the number of touches Dutch Fork's offense gets, and then make sure that they cover those receivers because Dutch Fork can go over the top. I think you cover the receivers, you put pressure on Tate Fant, and it could be a different ball game.
Well, one thing I do know, what stops the running game is penetration. They have a very good front four here at Westwood. Those guys got good footwork up front. I expect some stunts. I expect to move the linebackers around, getting to the backfield before 31 gets going downhill. Now, speaking of 31, Matt Colburn, Westwood has a pretty good back and Plant themselves. Matter of fact, I think they're a little similar. Squatty, strong, lower center body. I think this guy runs the ball very well.
Andrew Plant's done a great job this year. He played H-back tight end type position last year, came in this year, took over the job as the primary runner, and he's done an outstanding job. Extremely strong kid, one of the strongest kids that we had in the SC Varsity All-State Football Combine this year.
So before we talk to the coach here in a minute, have you changed your pick? I know you've been flip-flopping and backpedaling. You have a chance right now to change it if you want to.
I watched the film last night. I'm going with Dutch Fork.
I'm going with Westwood. They're my number one team. They've been so the last 4 or 5 weeks. Why? Because of defense. This team can play good defense. And another reason is because if you go about 100 or so yards over past where we are, that's where it's going to be packed 8,000 to 10,000 loud, screaming fans. They're going to have a huge advantage. And I'm going to take Westwood to win this by 10 points over Dutch Fork. That being said, we sat down with Coach Rodney Summers early on before practice, and here's what he had to say. We're here at Westwood High School. Big showdown, our game to watch this week. Dutch Fork coming in this stadium. Going to be a huge game. Coach Rodney Summers' team are undefeated. And, Coach, you guys have been phenomenal all year. Of course, you're my number one team in my pastor's picks, and you seem to get better each and every week.
Yeah, it's just feel blessed to be here at this point, playing for the region championship this week and being 9-0.
You guys have come a long ways. I talked to you about a couple of years ago when we played you here, and even last year, Coach Miles already said this team is going to be very good next year. And, of course, his prophecy has come to fruition.
Yeah, we really felt like that, we were going to be able to build upon that first year. Even though we struggled so much, we just told the guys, stay the course, keep working hard, and it'll pay off, and it has this year. So it's great to see these guys that have hung in there with us for 3 years and now to reap the benefits.
When you look at this game coming up, of course, they're coming off of a state title last year. Tom has done a phenomenal job with Dutch Fork. And, of course, they've been winning. They have 2 losses, went to Texas and lost to Allen, and, of course, Dorman lost. When you look at this team, what's going to be the toughest matchup?
They're a good football team. We got to stop the running game, and then, of course, as soon as you do that, they got a great passing game. So, our defense is going to be tested. And we've been tested some this year. We've been playing, really well on defense, but I think, it's going to come down to our offense, too, being able to move the football, keep their offense off the field. And, it's going to be a whole team effort, special teams, who makes the least amount of mistakes. just like on any Friday night, I think going to come out on top. And hopefully, it'll be us, and we're going to go out there and give it our all. And our guys have been motivated all week. Again, they got opportunity to play for a region championship, and they're going to be tested against a Big 16 defending state champs.
Matt Colburn, of course, is a guy you got to stop. I talked to several of their coaches, and one coach said, hey, he's our guy. If he's not on, we're not a very good football team. So when you look at that, a lot of folks expect you to stack the box. You play 8, maybe even 9 sometime in the box and put your corners on the island. Is that sort of the mindset stopping this running game?
I don't think you can sell out to those guys with that. I mean, of course, you do need to bring pressure. You got to, take some chances here and there and maybe play some man. But their receivers are so speedy. You got to be careful, too, because they'll slip a pass in, and if he gets it off and they get behind you, they're going to score. So you got to kind of pick your poison. Colburn's going to get his runs. He's a good back. You just like I was talking to JB earlier, I think they just have to basically we have to, as a team, kind of slow them down. Maybe not let them, overpower us.
Well, you got a guy in plant similar to the Colburn style, between the tackle, runner, powerful, low center of gravity. Just talk about what he means to your football team.
He's been a great running back for us this year. He's only getting better every week. He's very strong. He reminds me a lot of Colburn. May not have the top end speed, but he has the power, and he's working on his top end speed, and he runs the ball very hard.
It'll be live, on and popping right here Friday night, 7:30. Dutch Fork comes in. It's for the region. Westwood and Dutch Fork going to be a good one. We'll be here live with 1st and 10. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Overtime. Thank you, Coach Summers, for allowing us to come out to your facility. And, of course, it's going to be a heck of a game out at Westwood tomorrow night, Dutch Fork and Westwood. Now it's time to celebrate our Band of the Week. And, yes, DREHER High School, you have been selected as our Band of the Week. And now let's hear from you. Nice sound there, and I am going to bring my trombone before the year's over and join in with the Band of the Week. Now it's time to celebrate our cheerleaders of the week, and they come from that very good football team called Fairfield Central High School. That's right. Congratulations, girls. You have done a wonderful job. Your team has been on a roll since week 1 loss to a week 1 loss at the Brooklyn Case High School. They haven't looked back since.
Cheerleaders don't have to work as hard when your team's winning because the crowd's excited anyway, and so you don't have to put as much effort into it.
No doubt about it. Our players of the week, each and every week, I'll say this, it's so hard to choose. So many guys that we could definitely choose from. But let's look at our offensive player of the week. Of course, putting up great numbers. Logan Bailey, quarterback of Chapin, 21 of 37, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 190-yard rushings, and 3 touchdowns, 5 total touchdowns, Jim, and this guy has just been getting it done.
He's an outstanding athlete. We've been talking about him all year. Almost 500 yards of total offense with 5 touchdowns. And I'm going to tell you, this is one of those, what I call the impact players. If this is one of the most important players in the state in terms of taking him off this team would make this team mediocre or worse.
No doubt about it. He's a really good football player. Our defensive player of the week, and we'll take a look at who that is, Parker DeBow. Defensive back at Carter Newman, 3 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 4 passes defended in the skis and ranks, Jim. And this is a pretty good performance on a Friday night.
It is, and they've done a good job over at Cardinal Newman turning the program. They've struggled at times this year, but this is a program that's going to get better under that coaching staff over there.
Well, the Shrine Bowl has been selected now. It's the North-South All-Star game. I was there last year covering that game. It's a fine game for those that don't make the Shrine Bowl. Let's take a look at some guys here in the Midlands. A lot of names that you're going to recognize that we've been talking about right here on Overtime. The North-South All-Star game, a guy right there, Jim, at the top who's been getting it done on the ground. KS Leafart,
Best
really
running
good
back,
football
best
player.
running back in the state. Kid should have been on the Shrine Bowl.
What about Adonis Lee? He's a wide receiver at Westwood. We're going to see him on tomorrow night.
Yeah, tall, rangy player, got good hands, runs good patterns. He's a Division I prospect, like an outstanding wide receiver.
And here's a guy that you had in your recruiting profile, Tyler Frazier, the linebacker / safety at Spring Valley. We talked about his length, and he's a really good athlete.
Great athlete, plays safety. I think he's probably going to be an outside linebacker, possibly an outside linebacker at the next level. Got his first offer last week. We talked about that from Hampton. And there's going to be more to come for that young man. He's a good player.
To the next page we go. Of course, we had to go 2 pages. This one, DJ Padgett, the linebacker at Fairfield Central. Stephen Timmons, the linebacker at Westwood. We'll see him again on Friday night. But there's Jalen Williams, the guy that I coached at Spring Valley last year, defensive line. His brother Jordan, of course, is in the Shrine Bowl, so that's a big deal for their family.
Yeah, and Williams is one of those kids that I mentioned earlier, the strength of Spring Valley's defensive line. He's the reason it gives it that strength. He's the one that makes that strength level go up. And then you've got Denzel Johnson from AC Florida, defensive back, listed as a defensive back, but this is a guy that I suspect, and when they get in that game, they're probably going to line him up at wide receiver too, because he is lethal on the offensive side of the football.
Well, they get another guy in Terrell Goodwin. Of course, we had Coach Reggie Kennedy on, and he was talking about the Shrine Bowl. Didn't want to say too much. He felt like a couple of guys should have been in that Shrine Bowl selection. So you can see Dominic Scott there as well from Dutch.
And to answer a question, you see Terrell Goodwin from AC Florida as a second AC Florida. There were people asking me this week why Joseph Charlton, they couldn't believe a USC commitment kicker didn't make the North-South team. The reason for that is you're only allowed 2 players. And so from a coaching staff, if you're looking at impact players, they needed defensive linemen and they needed defensive backs. Those were positions of need. So they're going to take those 2 guys before they take a kicker. And since you can only have 2 from any team, then that kind of left Charlton off.
Well, congratulations to all of those guys, of course, our players of the week as well, our cheerleaders and our band. We appreciate you doing such a wonderful job. When we come back, it's time for Henry Rothenberg. The pretty guy is back. He's going to give us the forecast from Westwood and Dutch Fork tomorrow night. Plus, you don't want to miss the top 5. Somebody's been backtracking. Find out who after the break. All right, welcome back to Overtime. Dutch Fork travels to Westwood, and here's our forecast from our very own chief meteorologist, Henry Rothenberg. And Henry, you've been talking about a potential cool down this weekend where we need a coat.
Corey, a cold front indeed. In fact, the coldest air of the season as an Arctic blast is set to push through, and by Saturday, we'll be talking about our favorite word, fropa, frontal passage. We're giving outdoor watch for Halloween night, game night, a 5. The reason for it, that spooky chill that will be in the air. It will also be breezy out there and clouds increasing ahead of our next frontal boundary. Not a bad idea to download that free Skywatch weather app on your smartphone or mobile device from the App Store or Google Play so that you can track these temperatures as they drop. Bottom line, you don't want a jacket, you want the coat. It is going to be cold for us, folks. Future watch shows clouds increasing, but take a look at these showers, if you will, that try and push in. I'm not going to put the rain in the forecast. I think this one model is a little too aggressive. I think it stays well to our north, so we'll keep the forecast dry for tomorrow night. Speaking of tomorrow night, the game to watch, we have got Dutch Fork, Westwood. Should be a great game. Big implications for that game, 54 for that 7:30 kick. It's going to be chilly out there and breezy, so again, bundle up as you head out to cheer on your favorite team. Corey?
I appreciate it, Henry. Of course, Jim, it's going to be football weather at Westwood High School this weekend. You might need a little coat, a little blanket out there, but it's going to be a good one. But there's some other good games to watch here in the Midlands, no doubt about it. Fairfield Central versus Mid-Carolina. Your quick thoughts?
I think Fairfield Central gets that game. They're strong, as we mentioned earlier.
I do too. Keenan versus Pillion.
This is going to be a good game. Pillion's a very good football team, but I think Keenan's going to bounce back after that loss last week.
I like Floor over Dreher, of course, after the fight and everything that's going on. They did come back and win a game last week, but I still like AC Floor in this ballgame. White Knoll versus River Bluff.
This is a very important game for both of these teams. White Knoll's undefeated in region play. I like River Bluff. I like what they've been able to do this year, but I'm going to go with White Knoll. They're on a roll.
I'm going to take them dogs. I think Bennett got some dogs over there in River Bluff. I'm going to take the dogs. Of course, all games are Friday at 7:30. All right, Top 5, I told you, kind of teased you. There was some flip-flopping that you didn't really understand behind the scenes. In the top 5, I'm just saying, somebody has some. Did I hear on the radio that you kind of was going my way?
Well, originally yesterday on the radio show, I picked Westwood to win this football game. But, and I told them I didn't want to pick it. I told them I didn't want to pick it at the time. I wanted to watch the film, finish watching film last night. I did. I came in today. I said, you know what? I'm picking Dutch Fork in this football game.
So now you're going back to Dutch Fork.
Dutch Fork number 1. So my top 5 hadn't changed. Dutch Fork was number 1 last week. Westwood number 2. Great matchup. We'll see who's right tomorrow night. Fairfield Central still at number 3. Batesburg number 4. White Knoll number 5. So there was no change in the top 5 this week.
All right, there you go. So he did flip-flop on the radio, but tonight he's going back to Dutch Fork. Well, here is the POP. Corey's top 5 in the middle. Let me see this. You see this right here? I'm looking at some numbers. Westwood 38, Northeast 6. Westwood 17, Clover 15. We beat folks out. I'm saying we because I've been behind them. They still number 1, Dutch Fork 2, Fairfield Central 3, AC Floor 4, White Knoll number 5, and I'm rolling with you, the Red Hawks, tomorrow night. I'm going to be out there. We're going to be live for 1st and 10. The Pastor Payne will be there live on the field for post-game coverage, and the Red Hawks will be celebrating out in the wood. That's all I got to say. We got to get out of here, and you celebrate the rest of this night, and we'll see you next week right here in the overtime.